As you probably gathered today, we're doing healthy relationships. We live in a world full of people, so we can't escape relationships. Unless, of course, we live on a desert island, and none of us do that. So we're going to explore ways where we can have healthy relationships. Righty-ho. There are many depths of relationships, and Jesus is a great example of this. He interacted with the crowd, and with the rich, the poor, the well, the sick. He had compassion with them. He had those one-on-one conversations. He met their needs where he was able to. He had his 12 disciples, which he called his friends, and they were his friends that he hung out with and spent a lot of time with. And out of those 12 disciples, he had 3 close friends, Peter, James, and John. And he had many special moments with them. And it was at that time, before he died, it was those 3 that he said to him, he said to them, "Come, sit and watch with me and wait for me. Be there for me." And then out of those 3, his closest friend was John. John was the one he loved. And his last words were to John, "Take care of my mum." He trusted John so much. And we have different levels of relationships too. So we're going to explore that. First of all, we're going to look at some key ingredients for healthy relationships. And these 3 ingredients will apply to all our relationships. And that is love, respect, and communication. But before I want to go any further, I want to say a huge thank you to Porirua, who put the colour and the animation into this otherwise black and white static presentation. So thank you to Porirua for your kindness in helping me. Here we are. Our first one is love. Okay, righty-ho. Here we go. Which we saw so beautifully portrayed so far in those first 2 clips. And who are we to love? Well, the Bible says, love your neighbour as you love yourself. And it also goes on to say, but I tell you, hear me, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, and pray for those who mistreat you. So we're told to love those who are nice, but also we're told to love those who are not so nice. And we don't have to like what they do, but you can still have a loving way by not retaliating or being abusive. And so often it's easy to, someone's mean to us, it's very easy to not, to get mad at the situation and not always answer in a respectful and nice way. And when we do that, it only makes things worse. And Gary, when he was beaten up, he did not retaliate. Okay, have you ever considered, I love this quote, have you ever considered that someone in a cranky mood may just be having a bad day and you can be the sunshine that brighten up that day? I thought that was actually really a good quote that we can, you don't know when people are sort of like a bit touchy or whatever, what they've actually gone through that day, what's actually happening in their lives, and they just maybe going something that's really deep, and so they're not handling things, and so they may come across a bit abrupt and stuff like that, but we can be that sunshine in their life. Okay, let's explore love a bit further. We know we're to love everybody, but what does love look like? And we saw some of the things on that video, which I thought that first one was excellent, and the second one too. So love is being kind, involves kindness, compassion, and it involves forgiveness. In Ephesians 4:32 we read, "Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other just as Christ forgave you. Be imitators of God, therefore, as dearly loved children, and live a life of love, just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us as a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God. So love is kind, it's compassionate, and it forgives. It's never rude, abusive, or out of control anger. And I say out of control anger because sometimes we can be angry, but we can still handle that anger in a loving way. And it does not hold on to grudges or bad attitudes. Now there's a picture of me and my mum when I was little. And Mum was a wonderful mum. She was very caring, she was very loving, she looked after us well. But I have to confess, I got a bad attitude when I was older. After Dad died, she had a stroke, and she came to live with us for several years. And I remember noticing I'd get quite frustrated and snappy, and I really had a bad attitude. I didn't recognise it, but, well, I sort of did. I'd often go to Pat saying, "Oh, Pat, look, I lost it this time, I've really snapped, and, I'm really sorry, you pray for me, I'm just not handling this well." And so she'd pray for me, and she'd tell me not to react, but to respond, and to remember that, and then I'd go back home, and I'd react, and I'd think, "Oh, gosh, I'm not supposed to react. Now, what did Pat say? Oh, that's right, what's that R word?" And you know what? For the life of me, I couldn't remember I was supposed to respond in a good way. I didn't know what that was. It wasn't. I know that sounds dumb, but it was just the same. I'm like, over and over again, I go to Pat and I said, "Look, I'm just not coping. I'm just getting so frustrated." And it wasn't until I read the book called Anger is a Choice that I realised I had an anger problem. Now, I didn't think I did, but when I read that book, I realised I did. And it talked about looking at what's underneath, what's causing that anger, because I was blowing it. And I'd say sorry, and it's a bit like a weed. But when you pull a weed out and the earth's a bit hard and you sort of pull it and the root's still there and you've got rid of the weed, but in actual fact you haven't because it grows again. And that was what was happening to me. I was saying sorry, it was like lopping off that weed, but underneath that root was still there. And I recognised that what it was that, as I said, Mum was wonderful, but she had this one fault. Let's face it, none of us are perfect, and I know I'm not, and I've probably got heaps more faults, but this one thing that irritated me was that Mum quite often exaggerated. And I think too, as she got dementia, that started setting in, and she got older, and she got more forgetful, she couldn't remember some events, so she'd make them up. And I'm thinking, that never happened. And it would frustrate me no end, and I would snap. But when she wanted to talk to me, I also found I was cutting her out. I didn't want to listen because deep in my heart, I wanted to trust her. And I couldn't. And I wasn't coping with that. So I went to Gary one day after reading this book, Anger is a Choice, and he explained to me that, I had to deal with my attitudes and problems, and that, my problem was, the sin that I had was that I'd never ever confronted Mum about this. And he said, if you'd done this years ago, she may have changed. But you never gave her that opportunity. So I cried my eyes out and said, "Oh God, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I never talked to my mum and dealt with the problem. I was just pushing it more and more. I was getting more resentful, more bitter, more angry. And that's why the problem was never dealt with. But at that moment, when I confessed that, God forgave me. And he got rid of that root. And I have never ever experienced anything like it before. I was light. The next 2 days, I actually thought I was floating. I had that lightness. It was just so amazing because I had dealt with that bad attitude. And sometimes, we've got to ask, do we have bad attitudes in our lives? Is that affecting our relationships? Because if we've got bad attitudes and holding on to resentment, we won't have healthy relationships with other people, because out of those attitudes is the way we react to people. Okay, the next one, all about love again. This is the last one on love. Love is willing to sacrifice. It says, it wants the best for others. And in Philippians chapter 2, verse 4, it reads, "Each of you should look not only to your own interests, but also to the interests of others. Your attitude should be the same as that of Christ Jesus." I want to thank Tiruanor. She sacrificed her Saturday. She thought of me. She put her own interest aside. She could have slept in bed or be watching the Olympics. But thank you, Tiruanor, for sacrificing to me. And that is an example of love, putting your own, own interest aside. And how often, sometimes very rarely when you're in the supermarket and someone says, oh, you go ahead, you haven't got very much. And I say, oh, praise the Lord, I'm in such a hurry. In fact, every time I'm in the supermarket, I just want to get in there and get out. So when someone does that, I think, praise the Lord. But I don't think I've ever done that for someone else. I have to confess, it is all about, love is all about thinking of the other person and wanting the best for them. It's not self-centered. It's not, we'll flick that one up and down because, we really want to, it's not self-centered. Let's get that one. It's not self-centered. Thinks of the other person. It's not about control, manipulation, domination, bullying, judgmental or critical. They're all based out of being self-centered because we want our own way. So often, it's very easy to want your own way because your way is best. Anyone ever thought that? Anyway. Also beware of lust. Because, so often someone can say to you, if you love me, you'll give yourself to me in that way. That is not real love. That's about manipulation and control to get what they want. And if a person loves you, they will respect you. And real love respects the other person. It allows for the freedom for a person to be who they are, not to be controlled. You don't turn them into someone you want them to be. You allow that person to have real freedom. Okay, we're moving on to respect. This is our second point. That's important in a healthy relationship. And respect, hang on, change papers, sorry. Recognizes that each person is valuable because they are created by God and as such are valuable to Him. They are His creation. That's the rich, the poor, the old, the young, and whatever culture they're from. There was a story I read in the Reader's Digest, and it happened in the States, about a young woman. And she dressed up as an old woman. She did all the makeup. And she got all the old clothes on, and she got a stick, and she went and she visited various different places, and it talked about how badly she was treated. If there was a young person there, they treated her well. They served her first, and she was left waiting. And then when she took everything off, and she'd go back to the same place as who she was, a beautiful young woman. And they couldn't fall over her enough, And that is. We need to value each person. Each person is important in God's eyes because He made them. Yep, here we are, there's another one. He who oppresses the poor shows contempt for their Maker, but whoever is kind to the needy honours God. That was in Proverbs 14:31. The third important ingredient is good communication for a healthy relationship. That's why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen to each other. We can also be able to express ourselves. In a healthy relationship, you need to be able to listen without butting in. And that's something I'm still learning. And getting better, I think. But anyway, so listening and being able to express oneself. It's not taking offence. And it's all about choosing our words carefully. And our tone as well. And it's not giving anyone the silent treatment. With healthy relationships, we need to keep good communication. And ongoing communication is important in deeper relationships. And because when there's no communications, our relationships will suffer. I've got a picture of me and my friend Sylvia. Sylvia and I went to school together when we were 5 years old. And we were friends. And when I was 12, I left England and we came here. We have written to each other for 51 years. And we still keep in contact. She's visited over here once. We've been over there. Well, I've been over there once, and then with Gary, we went over there for their wedding. But you know, if one of us had stopped communicating, that relationship would have died. And so with our relationships, especially our deeper ones, keep that contact. Even if you don't see, you know, you can have friends who have moved away, but keep that contact. It's important for those deeper relationships. Okay, now we're going to look at ingredients for deeper relationships. We've looked at those three: love, respect, communication. But you know, when we want a deeper relationship, we need to go. There's three more we're going to look at, which are very important. First of all, we're going to choose our friends carefully. The Bible tells us in Proverbs 12:26, a righteous man is cautious in friendship, but the way of the wicked leads them astray. Proverbs 18:24, a man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. So as we look at those deeper friendships, we're going to look at trust, faithfulness, and mutual edification, because they're very important in a deeper relationship. So trust. Trust takes time to build trust. So be wary of who you trust. Ask. Oh, that's going to keep clicking. Okay. Are they honest? Are they truthful? Are they confidential? Are they authentic? That means who they really are. We need to ask the same questions though. Are we honest? Are we truthful? Are we confidential? Are we authentic? Can people trust us? Are we who we say we are? You know, healthy relationships, if you want a deeper one, this works both ways. You want the other person to be trustworthy, but we need to prove trustworthy ourselves in order to have a healthy and a deeper relationship. I remember someone this years ago who wanted to be my friend, and they were really friendly, but there was something about them, I think it was with the way they talked, that really made me wary. And I was right to be wary, because a bit further down the track, they actually turned against us. And you know, I think God I must have sensed that or something, that, you know, that we've got to be really careful who we trust, because people will let us down. And don't share everything, your deepest heart, with somebody you can't trust, because they'll just spread it to everybody else. So complete trust, when you have complete trust in someone, why it's so important is because when you have complete trust, it gives you security, it gives you confidence, it gives you safety, it gives you the freedom to be ourselves. And Gary and I, we've been married now 40 years. You know, I've got complete trust in Gary. I know he wants the best for me. I know he'll look out for me. I know he really loves me and he wants the best. And that's an important question to ask. Does this person that I'm trusting really love me and want the best for me, before you actually share deeper? Okay, the next important ingredient for a deeper relationship is faithfulness. And it says in Proverbs 17:17, a friend loves at all times. And in Ecclesiastes 4:10, it says, if one falls down, his friend can help him up. But pity the man who falls and has no one to help him up. True friends stand with each other in the tough times. They help us in our struggles. They encourage us. They build us up. They have our back. And they are reliable. You know, that top picture, you probably may have seen it on the news, at the Olympics. with Nikki Hamblin from New Zealand and Abby D'Agostino from the United States. You know, when Nikki fell, Abby helped her up. And then Abby also struggled and she fell. And so then Nikki turns and helps her up. And isn't that the sign of our true friend, faithfulness? We are there to help each other, to encourage each other, to build each other, to have each back, to help each other along, to really, to encourage each other. We need those friends who will stick with us thick and thin. And time will tell who those friends are. So often if we're in trouble, the friends that are on the surface, they don't want to know us. But the real friends will stick close and they will help us up again when we fall. They will stick by us and encourage us. The other picture is of Derek and Gary, a close friend. Derek's a close friend we've known before we got married. And this picture's taken 4 days after Gary got out of hospital after being beaten up. Derek, who lives in Christchurch, was in Auckland at the time. And he changed his flights on his way home. Instead of going all the way home, he broke his journey at Wellington and come and stayed the night so he could spend the day with Gary. That's what friends do when we face trouble. That's what our real friends do. And the last one is mutual edification. For a deep relationship, it needs to be two-way. There needs to be give and receive. We give strength and we receive strength. We give love, we receive love. We give encouragement and we receive encouragement. That's what deep friends do. They build each up emotionally. Having their friendship is refreshing. Having their friendship, there's laughter. In that friendship, you just enjoy being together. And there's fun. And there's shared interests and values. And you're able to say and hear the hard things. That's a picture of the bottom one. There's a picture of our friends Bess and Gordon. If we'd known, since Kawerau days. When we first got to Kawerau, they had just moved into Kawerau. And their little pushchair which they had all their groceries on, fell apart outside our house. So Gary, who was in a hurry, backed out, saw them, realised who they were because they'd moved in next door to people who went to the church. So when he heard they opened their mouths, he realised who they were because there was one English accent and one Canadian accent. And he says, I'll take your stuff home for you, jump in the van. So anyway, they did jump in the van. And, we actually picked up that, and Bess came round the next day, and, we picked up that friendship. And that friendship, it became a very special friend. Sometimes you actually don't know who your special friends eventually do become. But they did. They weren't Christians at the time, but we spent a lot of time sharing about the Lord, and then they became Christians eventually. And, actually not too long after, actually. And we've had a wonderful friendship together. They've moved to the South Island, and we have many holidays with them. In fact, we had 11 holidays over in Golden Bay, because we just love going over and seeing them. And we have that fun, that laughter, and all those ingredients. And, and Bess and I will ring each other up, and she can speak into me the hard words, the words I need to hear. She said, have you ever thought of this? And I'm thinking, okay, it was just the right word I needed to hear. And I could say exactly the same to her. I could do that encouragement to her. It was a two-way relationship where we were building each other. We were giving that strength. We were giving that love. We were giving that encouragement to each other. We were building each other. And, those are healthy relationships, those that have that trust, that respect, and that mutually edifying. A healthy relationship where there is love, respect, communication, trust, faithfulness, and mutual edification brings great joy. And I want to say, treasure those relationships. And in particular, if you are married today, Treasure that relationship. Don't let anything get in the way of your marriage. Anything or anybody get in the way. That is a treasured relationship. So work on your love, your respect, your communication, your trust, your faithfulness, and your mutual edification. Because that's where you will get great joy. We need to be able to, that's the one. And if you're if you're not married and you're thinking of getting married and looking at that, look for these 6 things too. Ask, will this person love me in a healthy way? Will they respect me? Do they communicate well with me? Can I trust them? Are they likely to be faithful? Is this relationship mutual edification in this relationship? Because any relationship that's only one way is only one way, and it's not healthy. Not for a deeper relationship. It needs to be 2-way. And there's one more ultimate relationship, and that is our relationship with God. He created us so that we could have a relationship with Him. He is loving. He values us. He wants to communicate, and He's given us His word. That's His letter to us, His word. We might not be able to see Him physically, but He's there. He loves us, and He wants to communicate through His word, and He also speaks within our hearts. He is trustworthy, and He's given us so many promises that, we can trust Him with those promises. And He is faithful. He will never, ever leave us. He is with us all the time. And He desires a 2-way relationship with us. And when we know that true relationship with Him, it comes of great joy and peace. There's no other relationship like it. And there was a song much earlier. It said, "Your presence is heaven to me." And when we have that relationship with God, it's like no other. It's like no other. So I want to say, if anyone here wants to talk about, may talk about further about their relationships, and they might have struggles in their relationships and want help, that you can talk to me or anyone else down the front here, Stephen over there, or someone else might, or Pat. We are available. There's people here available that you can talk to. And if you haven't got a relationship with God, and you want to find out more about having a relationship with God, also feel free to find someone that you can ask and just say, I want to find out more about having a relationship with God. So God bless you all. Have an awesome week. Think about your relationships and how also you can improve in your relationships too and have those healthy relationships. So, have an awesome week and an awesome day. See you at 5 o'clock.